Okay.
All right. Morning, everyone. Right. Welcome to the meetup. So today, Derek, myself, we are going to talk about Ansible Automation Platform 2. Right. This is going to be the second of the third part series that the three-part series that we are running. Right. So the agenda for today is going to be continuing what's new in AAP2. Right. And some of the intro and demos that we are going to do will be around things like the cloud services, the automation platform itself, as well as some of the parts on the Navigator piece that we did not finish showing the other day, right? And we'll end up with a question and answer. So this is just a very quick recap on what we have for the platform, right? So you can see over here that we spoke about most of the things in the last session, right? So this thing around the controller, the execution environment, replacing, the engine itself, things around content collection, service catalog, which we will take a look later on, right? The hub and the insights. So those are things that we will be looking at for this particular session today. So Derek is going to just finish and wrap up the piece on the Navigator demo that he was doing last week. Oh, no, sorry, last month, right? So we kind of showed the builder as well in the first session. So we are not going to do it this time around. The platform operator, we can do a very quick demo as well, just to show that you can easily just build it from the operator hub from OCP. Right. So I'm going to hand it over to Derek to just finish up the Navigator piece, and then I'll take over the sharing to just talk about some of the slides on the rest of the items, and we will kind of walk you through what we have in the console.redhat.com. Right. Let me stop sharing.
Thanks, Anthony. Let me share my screen. Right, so my instance is up. Right, just so similarly, last time we showed a bit of Ansible Navigator. Just want to wrap it up with a few more commands that I feel that's quite useful for users who are now trying to get into the new way of running playbooks, right? So so currently I have the Ansible Navigator, right, in terms of the artifacts that has been created after running the playbook itself. One of the good things to have is that, for example, if I were to want to, for example, replay all the previous execution that has been done previously, right? I just need to do an Ansible Navigator. Then I can just do a replay. And then let's say today, in November 25th, I have a test I was doing previously, right? I can just do a replay of it. And it will show me back out the text user interface, right, that has been done previously. What are the tasks has been run as well. So this is one of the nice things that you can do if you want to just replay the output, right, or the execution that has been done previously instead of running the same playbook again, right? Even though we understand that Ansible is either potent when we run playbooks all over and over again, right? But with Ansible Navigator Replay allows you to run to see the executed output without running the playbook over again, right? So that's something that's very nice to have. One of the things that I want to show here, right, as I'm on this page is if I can do a filter as well, right? Because this is a text user interface, one of the things I can do is doing a filter. So for example, I want to filter ping, right? So you'll show me all the parts that has ping or all the words that has ping inside it, right? I think along the next few versions of Ansible Navigator, you will enhance this feature, right? So maybe if there is a success or failure that we're looking at, or I want to filter by maybe certain regex parameters. So these are things that can be done later on with a few more enhancements as well. So this is one of the nice things to have. For example, if you are running, against multiple hosts, multiple tasks involved, and you just want to filter down to a certain task, right? Instead of going down the list, right, it's much more easier to just filter and look at it, right? So that's quite nice to have. Another thing that I want to show is Ansible Navigator. Is that if you run Ansible Navigator by itself, what you'll see is more of a main menu, and which you can explore all the things that are available. For example, what is available collection I have today, right, in my execution environment that I'm using for this Ansible Navigator, right? So I can just do a collections. It's just putting out all the collections. So as you can see here, they listed out for me what are the collections that are available in the execution environment. So this allows you to look from the get-go, right? What are the available collections? What are the collections I need to build on top of the execution environment if I need to, right? And I can even go down to, for example, the Ansible utilities. I just press 6. Right? I can look at what is the, what are available modules or roles that are within this current collection itself, right? Quite easy to see. I believe you go deeper into inside it, you can even look at what are the the documentation and so of what are the available I would say examples, right, that you can use this particular module for. Quite nice to have. What you can do as well is I can look at images, right? What are the current images that I'm using, right? In this case, this is the primary one I'm using, and at least it can show you in terms of what is the available images that are within your current localhost environment today, right? And if you need to put on any new images, that's where you can look at this current menu here. So do explore Ansible Navigator, right? There's a lot of things that you can do. Things like looking at inventory as well. I don't have a very complex inventory file. That's why I feel that it's not very I'll say it doesn't look very nice if I show it. But if you have a complex inventory here, right, definitely you can look at a lot of the things like, for example, the groupings. You can look at the individual hosts. What are the host variables that are tied to that particular host as well, right? So these are things that you can look at when you're using Ansible Navigator. I think that's all I have. I will then pass my time back to Anthony to show you the rest of the part 2 of our series here. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric. I'll take over sharing, right? So basically, for the rest of the session, we are just going to look at some of the things that we have, in the SaaS component, right, of the automation platform. Right, as we know, there are actually more than just the controller itself or what we used to call as tower, right? So this time around, I'm just going to talk about things around the automation hub, the services catalog, content collections, as well as insights. So as you can see, the automation hub itself basically allows you to store the certified content as well as your own private content. If you're familiar with Ansible Galaxy, this is actually like your own private Galaxy that you can just use. And it actually allows you to build one on-prem as well, right? If you are using something that is on-prem, you can build your own on-prem automation hub. I will show you how it looks like. And you can also have the one that is in the console.redhat.com or cloud.redhat.com, right? So what happens over there is that you get access to the certified content that is coming from our partners, and you can just use them off the shelf, and you get support for that, right? And the architecture on how it looks like for the private automation hub is that you can see it, for instance, inside a DMZ zone, right? You can see it as something similar to the Red Hat satellite on where it can be positioned, right? So you get access and pull down the information from, let's say, Galaxy from the automation hub, or it can be anything that's customized for your usage. And the platform itself that we are going to use will then pull the information from the private automation hub, and you can use that collections for your own purpose on the target environment, right? So you still have the requirements file that you define, right? Either you put it directly from the cloud.redhat.com or that you put it from the automation hub, right? And things like Ansible Galaxy command will still be used. So these are the stuff that we spoke about last time, right? With the UBI8 and the collections and libraries and how we actually create the execution environment and how everything can come together with the builder. You build it and you put it onto the automation hub, and then we can test it, right? So maybe I'll just show you how it looks like. So if you were to have your own private automation hub, it kind of looks like this, right? So this is something that is built on my own local laptop, right? If you have it, you will come over here. You can see that there are many different collections. There is published, there is a Red Hat certified. Right now, we have 106 certified platforms, right? So those are the stuff that is available today. You can see the full list. If you put it to 120, it just shows all those things that's inside here. Let's say if you wanted something for VMware, you can actually do a search for the content, and that it actually drills you down to all the stuff that can be used, right? So these are all the various content and how you can actually use it yourself. These things are going to be available right over here in the hub. The main difference, of course, with the Galaxy piece is that all these things are tested and verified to be working on a particular version. Let's say in this case, vSphere 702, right? And you can see that there are many different versions. All these are the stable release of this particular certified content that you have, right? If there is any issues at all, you just have to raise a ticket with Red Hat, and they will be able to help you from a support perspective. Then the other things that can happen, right, is this container registry. You basically can build the image, right? In this case, for instance, we talk about things like my VMware builder, right? I build the image for the requirements.txt, right? I will need to include this particular package, and then from a YAML perspective, I will include things like community.vmware, for instance, right? And what we do after this is that we build the image, right? And then we will be able to push it to the automation hub that exists on the local environment. Right, so those are things that can be done. What I did in the past was that I kind of pushed the GCP collection image into the automation hub, about 20 plus days ago, right? And that's what can be done whenever you want to do it. So this is something that you can use it to go and store the container images, which basically is going to be your execution environment that you'll be storing. So all those things can be stored over here. Of course, if you are using something like the Red Hat OpenShift, right, or you are using Quay.io, then you can also store it inside Quay. For instance, over here, I do have different repositories, right? I have something for GCP, I have something for Cisco, I have something for VMware, and I'm just pulling it directly from the environment, right? And you can have version as well, right? So let's say you have different tagging, and Quay, for instance, will help you to scan and make sure that there is no vulnerabilities, right? And that everything is good. So those are things that can be done. Over here, what we have is the VMware collections that I was showing, and it's actually version 1.0, which I built it a couple of days ago and pushed it to Quay. Right, so we have a combination of different tool sets that can be used in this case on how you want to actually deposit things within the environment. The hub itself allows you to do user control as well. So you do have the capabilities to create users and groups and restrict the access and usage via role-based control, right? So you then need to make sure that the repo management, for instance, over here, right? You can say that, okay, you want to just connect, right, to the console.redhat.com, and you're able to pull the certified content over there. You do need a token, right? So for subscribers, you're able to just put it in, and if you hit the sync button, which I did about 12 hours ago last night, you will be able to pull down all the latest content from the Automation Hub, which actually exists over here, right? So this is the on-prem. The one that is actually up in the cloud services, it's actually within the console.redhat.com. If you were to look at what we have in the Automation Hub over here, right? Basically, this is where the collections are. It's a bit slow. So similar, right? 106 certified collections. So we can just pull all those things directly from our Automation Hub down to where we have over here, right? So all those things will be similar, right? You do need a subscriptions if you want to pull the collections from console.redhat.com, because once you log in, there is actually this thing on Connect to Hub. And you need to load the token over here, right? In order for you to be able to hook up the private Automation Hub to the one that's inside the cloud. Right, thanks, Ganesh. So that's kind of how this whole integration can be done. And it's actually quite useful for a lot of customers, especially people who are not able to connect directly to the internet, right? For people who have built the cluster in the AWS, Azure, for instance, that's not an issue, right? You can just connect direct to console.redhat.com. Just have to follow the instructions over here when you set up the hub itself, which just like this, right? You fill in the URL and the SSO together with the token that you get from here, right? So this is kind of how the hub looks like, and how we can store things inside Quay. Any questions on the Automation Hub from anyone else? Okay. So then the next piece of it, right, it's actually around how we can use the whole platform. Right. So we actually use it for large enterprise, right? This Automation Hub feature. In fact, what we are working on today for the next version and release, you are going to see a HA capable Automation Hub. Right. So the design is there. It's meant for large organizations needing resiliencies. Right. So we are going to come up with a HA version of the on-prem Automation Hub that will cater to the requirements for large enterprises. Subscription is going to go based on per 100 nodes, right? So that's kind of how this thing is going. So one subscription is actually 100 managed nodes. So one managed node can be like a Windows server, a Linux server, Unix. These days we even work on AS400, right? So IBM Z, those kind of systems that is inside the banks. Or network equipment like Cisco, storage like NetApp and those things. If you want to know the exact cost, you can just reach out to us. We can always discuss offline. Does that answer the question, Satya? I think. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you need more explanation, feel free to just unmute yourself and just talk to us. All right. So on the automation lifecycle piece, right, we spoke a lot about the Automation Hub. I will show you how it looks like for insights later on, right? Then we have the automation controller, which if you're very familiar with, Ansible Tower, for instance, that has been around for a while, right? This is actually the replacement for Ansible Tower. We'll take a look at how that UI and all those things look like. The Ansible command line, it's basically what Derek has shown earlier with the Navigator, right? So that is going to replace Ansible-Playbook, right? So Ansible-Navigator will be the new way of running the playbook command, right? So when you run the playbook from the controller, it basically shows this, right, on what was being executed. For people who are familiar with Ansible, you basically have different tasks within a play that's within the playbook. You run the playbook and then it will just perform the task. I will show you how it can be done using the environment, as in the execution environment, right? The image that we have built for VMware. Right, I do have an environment that we can just run the setup. So there are different components for the automation, right? We have the playbooks, and then we have the execution environment, which, based on what we discussed in the first session, right, last month, right, we talk about how you can build all those things inside. We kind of saw earlier as well that for VMware to work, what are the collections as well as the binaries that's needed to go in. We built the base image from the minimal image for Ansible core. And that's kind of how the whole stuff can be built, right? So what do we have, right? We have workflows that we can use within the Ansible automation environment, right? Platform itself, right? The API and webhooks. I'm not sure whether you guys are familiar as well, but we do have this ability to do things like GitOps, because things like GitHub and GitLab can basically make use of webhook to just call Ansible controller to start running the job. Then the API interface itself is something that allows you to call Ansible controller to go and perform and run a workflow. Right. Then we have centralized logging and audit trails, and credential piece we can integrate with things like CyberArk or HashiVault. Right. Those are native out of the box. So this is the external layer, right? That after you create the playbooks and after you set up the execution environment, you have the other pieces that comes along with it. And this is actually on the template side. You can run it. We can do things like syncing of the Git repo from project perspective, right? We specify the execution environment. We talk about the credentials as needed, and then it gives you a full audit trail on the whole execution itself. Inventories and credentials, we take a look at what it looks like, right? You can do dynamic inventory, right? Pulling information from vCenter, for instance, pulling from AWS, or that you can set up your own static inventory. We take a very quick look at how it looks like later on, right? Then the workflow piece, right? You can create workflow within the controller. And the API side, right? We have the Tau API that can be used for you to integrate with things like ITSM, for instance, right? So those are stuff that existed even in the the old Ansible Tower, right? So over here is similar, but it's actually being used for the controller. And the dashboard we are all aware of. So let me see. All right. Yeah. So let me just go back to the controller itself, right? So over here, this is how the latest controller looks like. This is the AAP2, right? You can also call it, controller 4.0. Right. So we are using AAP 2.0.1, which is the latest at this point in time. 2.1 is going to be released December 2nd, right? So the date may shift, but right now it's going to be, in a couple of days' time, you're going to get the 2.1 released. So if you're familiar with Ansible Tower itself, you can see that most of the things are pretty much similar, right? You can still do your schedule, right? You can still do the activity streams, which shows what has happened within the environment, right? You can still do things like the workflow approval, right? So we do have a single level approval whereby you can say that whether or not to proceed with the workflow. For instance, if you are running a workflow in the maintenance windows, you can have a change request admin to approve or disapprove the running of the workflow when an engineer execute it. Right. So these are all controlled via role-based access control. Template wise, similar as well, right? So we have different job templates that has been created. credentials, right? You now have things like the container registry credentials that you use to connect. In my case, I use it to connect to Quay, right? And then I have the vCenter credentials, right? Different projects, for instance, we are still doing similar stuff, right? We connect to the Git source. Inventory wise, for instance, we have the VMware inventory, and the rest of the stuff basically with organization, users, and teams, it's similar to the past. The one thing that is different, right, is this execution environment. So you can see over here that we don't have this in the past, right? Because the execution plane right now, we're basically running on containers, right? So you kind of need to point to the image. So you can see that, for instance, I have a VMware execution environment, which is pointing to the Quay, right? It's pointing towards what I have uploaded to Quay over here, right? So then what are the things that has to be done? You need to pass in the path, right, to the image. You can set the policies, right? For me is I set it to pull if not present. You can always pull it or you don't pull it, right? So there are different options. And then you need to specify the registry credentials. In this case, I created a credentials for Quay, right? So you specify all those things, and then you will be able to set up the custom EE, which to me is pointing to GCP, right? Or the VMware EE that is pointing towards the VMware collections. So those are things which are different, right? So if you were to look at, in this case, I do have a VMware environment that is running, right? I can actually use, for instance, over here, right? The templates. Maybe I'll just show you what's inside the inventory first. So you can see over here that the sources itself using dynamic inventory, just like how we did it in the past with Tower, you can actually pull all the information for this guy, right? So if I hit a sync, it will start the sync process to pull the information for the VMware environment and then populate the inventory itself, right? So right now, the inventory wise, you can see that you have different groupings, right? Things like whether is it in the power on, power off state, Linux, RHEL 8, or is it a Windows 2019 VM that we have, right? The host itself will also have all this other information that is being available. Let's just see whether the job is done, right? It's done, right? And you can see that you get to pull out the information with regards to, for instance, this Windows server that you have, right? All these informations get pulled down from vCenter. And it's actually the same stuff that you see over here, right? So all this information will be there. So this is the dynamic inventory script that we can use when working with VMware. And if you were to run this, you can actually specify things like which data center, the VM name that you want, the disk size. So this itself, right, if you were to look at the template, the main difference is that now you need to specify the execution environment, which we built using VMware packages as well as collections, right? So everything is bundled within this container image. And when you launch it, you fill in the survey form, right? DNS information and whatnot. And then you can just launch. When you launch this thing, what's going to happen is that it will spin up a container with the relevant images, and then it's going to start to perform the task within the VMware environment itself. So in this case, we do customization on the VM2, right? So the VM is going to set up the relevant IP addresses, the things like the DNS entries that we have set up, as well as the user that we have assigned to it. So everything can be done easily from the Ansible controller. So the main difference really is that now you do not need to use a very big and fat image, right? You can just build something like what we shown earlier. You just use the minimal stuff. Basically over here, like what we were showing, we start off with a base image that is coming from registry.redhat.io. This is a hardened image that we use. This is called minimal EE minimal RHEL 8, which is on the 2.0.1 release version. And the stuff that we put inside here basically is just those kind of VMware related binaries as well as collections, right? So we use this, we set up the image, and then we will build it, and it will be able to execute anything that's VMware related. Hence, you can actually have multiple images that does different things. In this way, you keep the image size small and you use it only for a particular purpose, right? It's actually good from that perspective. So the stuff that we do, it just automatically help you to set up all the rest of the stuff that you're doing, with the setting up of the virtual machine within VMware. So you will just go through a few restarts, and you will see later on that everything is being done automatically and set up nicely. And any questions from anyone on what we have covered so far with the controller? Okay, I mean, I'll just let it do the reboots. We'll come back later. So some of the stuff over here is around how you consume it, right? So we have the users coming in, like what I did earlier on from the dashboard. We can select the job template that we want, and then we will just run through the automation, right? Using role-based control. And then it calls upon the execution environment, which in our case is related to VMware, and it will just perform the required actions for that. So self-service, we can show later on with the service catalog in the SaaS portion as well, right? And then this is on the approval, which we spoke about. This is role-based control approval. And you can also do things with the ITSM by doing the integration, let's say with ServiceNow, right? Let me just go back. Let's see. Is it ready? Okay, I think it's up. And anyway, we know that this is able to spin the stuff up. So and from the controller perspective, it shows that everything is actually done nicely, right? So that's done. What happens next, right? If you were to go back over here, from the SaaS perspective, the layer that we are seeing, you can actually go and look at the overview of the entire clusters and environment that you have. For instance, over here, you can see from insights on how many clusters is being monitored over here with this account. What are those things which are in critical mode warnings, right? What are the stuff inside the automation hub? What are the feature collections over here? Someone was using Arista, right? And the services catalog that's available, right? So if you look at it over here, you can actually use the services catalog to connect to the Ansible controller or the AAP platform that we have and issue an order from here, right? So it behaves similar to what you will be doing with, let's say, a single layer approval, right? So for instance, if I just wanted to create, let's say, a 3-tier application, right? We could actually create one here, and then we can go through the order process and approval flow to go and trigger Ansible Tower, Ansible controller, right? To go and perform the required setting up of the applications as well as to spin up the VM. So this is useful for certain customers, right? Of course, if you already have things like ServiceNow and all those stuff that you're using, it may not be that useful for you. But if not, this is something that you can consider using. The on-prem version is also coming, right? Sometime next year. We know that there are customers who have requested for this to be on-prem as well, and hence this feature is also going to be something that is being worked on, and it will go on-prem. So basically, if it is a simple team, right, you just wanted to use Service Catalog to set up stuff within your infrastructure, this can be a way to do it, right? Different order processes, and then you can set the orders and approvals, right? So right now there are some orders that's being gone through, right? So like this one was from a while ago. Okay, right. So what are all the messages? Like what are the stuff that has went through? So the on-prem version will be coming, and you'll be able to use it with the relevant approvals and all those stuff. The other things that is being seen over here is with all these statistics that we actually have, right? So you can see that you're able to see what are the jobs run by different organizations and the usage by different organizations based on the task, right? So this shows a breakdown on all the stuff that is available, right? You can do things like the job explorer, right? It shows you what are the jobs that was being executed and whether everything is working properly. The cluster information, right? It shows you things like the job status as well as the top workflows, templates, modules itself, right? You can see all this stuff. So we do have some new features that is kind of similar to what you see in Red Hat Insights, right? So things like advisors. So it shows what are the different things which needs to be improved. Just take note that this is in beta, right? So it's still being worked on. You may not see it if you're not using the beta version, right? So you can see that what are the problems within the system itself. It actually shows you the problem that you might have and gives you the recommendation on what to do to improve the entire AAP cluster in terms of the stuff that you can do, right? Baseline, for instance, for doing drift checking, right? You can set up different baseline to see, whether your system is in compliant or conformance to the things that you want it to be, right? Other things like the inventory as well. So of course, as of now, this is purely SaaS, right? So you kind of need to make sure that the cluster is connected to console.redhat.com in order to have a very holistic view of the entire clusters that you have. We can set up security insights for policies that you want to enforce on this particular clusters as well, right? Things like remediations with playbooks, right? Those things can be done. Right now, we did not create anything, right? For all the things that is going on today, right? Then other things that we have shown in the past, right? Notifications if there is any issues with the systems. For instance, the subscription is going to expire, right, in certain number of days, and other things like the savings planner, right? How much money you can save if you use automation. This is more for executive. You can do job scheduling as well, right? That is not a problem. In fact, you can do something like this over here, right? So let's say if you were to go back to templates, schedule, right? You can add a schedule. So let's say we call it a test schedule. And you can actually do things like this. Do I want to make it to run every minute, every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes? Doesn't matter, right? Every hour, right? Which every day, right? Or every 2 days, or that it could be something like week. Do we do it on the Sunday every week, or do we do it something like on a Sunday night or Monday morning, whatever, right? Doesn't really matter. Or that you can select which day of the month, or on the first Sunday, or something like second Tuesday, right? For instance, you can get it to do, for instance, Windows patching, right? We know that new software services, packages, and all those things get released every so often, and there is a fixed timing, right? So we can actually set up Ansible controller to go and perform a scan, or just go and patch a system based on that. It can also be which day of the year, right? Or the second Tuesday of what, right? Of Jan, December. So we do have the capabilities of doing job scheduling from a controller perspective, and it's able to do all these things quite easily. You can select the time, the date, and all those things from here as well. Does that answer the question?
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So this is from here, right? And these are reports that you can generate, right? So ultimately, what we wanted to show here is all the new stuff that comes along with this platform. Beyond just the controller, there are actually a lot of things that can be done with this particular system, right? So it helps you to give a very holistic perspective in terms of doing the automation itself. Yeah, I think that's been talking quite a fair bit. Yeah, and there's this interactive lab. I'm just going to post it over here, right? So if you want to learn more, right, we now have a way for you to set up the environment, right? So you just have to put in some of the information here, and you can generate an interactive lab that you can actually do hands-on and testing on, right? So it's also a change from the past, whereby you kind of can only do it if you get a trial subscriptions and then work on it. Right now, what can happen is that you can just put in some of this information, and you will be able to access the labs and start using things like the builder, the navigator, and some of those things that we were going through for the last two sessions that we have, right? So yeah, that's kind of the last few slides that I have. Any questions from anyone on how this whole thing works? I mean, obviously from here, if I were to go back to the inventories and I do a sync again, right, I'll get new information. Just have to hit sync. It should pull the information with regards to the 2019 server over here. Right, so those things. So then if you were to click inside here, you can see that this new server that we created was updated inside the inventory. If you look at it, these are the actual information that we use to set up the system itself. Right? So if you were to look at the jobs that we did earlier on, right? What are the information that we did? Like we set up this thing with 10, 10, 10, 2, 3, 0, right? So that's the exact information that is being done on this system. So you can see over here that all these are all set up nicely by Ansible, right? Exactly according to what we ask it to do. The DNS information as well, you know, the domain name, the gateway, etc. Yeah, I think we're left with about 10 minutes. We're open to questions, or is there anything that you guys are interested in that we can try to answer?
I think one of the things that maybe I can show is the operator in OpenShift.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, I think we have not shown that.
Let me quickly just share. Crash on me briefly, but it should be fine now. When you run things at home, you never know, right? So this is a OpenShift platform, right? Our container orchestration platform that's now running actually in a Nook at home currently. So if you go to Operator Hub, you can see that Ansible is now considered early access, but I believe once it reaches 2.1, right, it should be out of early access. Right now it's version 2.0.1. So once you install it, right, the layout is still similar to what you see on what we showed earlier in Ansible Controller as well as Automation Hub. The only thing that is different is that because OpenShift internally has a container image repository, it will be utilizing the OpenShift image repository instead of the standard container registry that comes with Automation Hub previously, right? Other than that, all the other components are similar, right? Using Postgres as a database, and you can run high availability tree nodes across as in within OpenShift itself, right? So setup is similar, the layout is similar. It's just more on just a few certain components that's a bit different, right? But other than that, is similar. Yeah.
Can we go back to the syncing that you showed at the last clip, Juncheng?
Sure.
I was looking to understand, when you press sync, are you pushing the Ansible configuration to the server, or the other way around? What is it that you're pulling it, right?
We are pulling it. So basically what's going on is that you need to specify the, within credentials, you have to tell me where the vCenter is located, right? So for instance, it's located at this particular IP address, and this is the username and password, right? And after which, what's going on is that when you hit the sync button, it's just going to do an API query towards vCenter, and the results that you see, right, is going to look like this. It just pulls all the stuff from vCenter, right? So I'll be able to create the group accordingly. And you can actually do things like filtering, right? Because we have different groups. For instance, I only want to pull out the information for things which are power on. We just have to set it inside the filtering, and then it will just pull those things that is in a power on state. And that's something that you can do from here, right? So yeah, so basically it's the place that you can set up the sources, right? The host filters, right? And what are the variables and all those things that you want to set. Pretty much using that, you will be able to pull back the stuff that you need. The same logic applies for AWS, for Azure, Google Cloud. You can use grouping to group all the servers accordingly and populate the inventory file. So in that way, it becomes very efficient on where the automation should be applied to.
Okay, clearer. Thank you very much.
All right. I guess if there's no more question, we can actually return 5 minutes to everyone. Derek, you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think we covered most of it. If there's any other things that we didn't cover, I think just let us know. As well as look out for our third session to wrap up the year, right? Is I believe we're gonna schedule it in mid of December. So our business unit will be around. You can ask us anything in the session to just ask away any questions that you have, as well as any other questions relating to Ansible in terms of support perspective or in terms to engineering perspective. You can always ask that. We'll be happy to answer all your questions. So that is for the 3-part series. After that, probably we might do a new update for the newer versions. I think there are certain changes that are coming in, which I feel can be quite exciting, right? For the I think for foreseeable future for Ansible itself, I think there will be some few features. So look out for that as well. Yeah.
Yep. So it will be an Ask Me Anything session for the next one in December. So our business unit is going to be with us. If you want to ask about new stuff, what's happening, do join us in December.
Okay.
Right.
I think if there's no more questions, then thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Yep. Have a good day. Thank you.
See you.